Alright, Trial Mob, so to start everything off today, we got some badass mechs up from Joytoy. As you know, they've been coming out with heat, and the heat just don't stop getting hotter. On top of that, Acid Rain has some really cool stuff going on right now. So we have two events that recently happened. Basically, one was a collector's meetup, which is obviously super badass. I hope eventually we get to have one here in California. And then we had another one that was just an event that had, well, I was one of the hosts, Acid Rain, so they had a whole bunch of things on display. So I was able to get a lot of these pictures. Big shout out to Patrick Chan because he's been covering a lot of this. So I'm going to go ahead and go through a lot of this because it's always nice to see some in-hand photos and of course some upcoming prototypes. So let's go ahead and break it down. So to start everything off, here we have some of Joytoy's prototype mechs that are coming out, and I do believe this was confirmed to be a 1/25th scale. I'm not into buying the 1/25th scale stuff, but damn, does this look badass. This looks surprisingly original in design. I don't think I've seen something like this before. Maybe you have, let me know. But basically we have this dual scythe weapon in the background. I see some potential weapons on the forearms of the robot itself. The what would you call that, the single eye down the middle, that's really badass. This is a really cool looking figure overall. The stance that they gave him looks really cool. The weapon itself, again, this double scythe thing is absolutely hardcore. I really like what they're doing here with a lot of their, as they're moving forward with some of their designs. I really like what they're bringing to the table here. And I cannot wait to see what this thing looks like once it's colored, and I imagine the pilot is going to look really badass. Now on their second design, as you can see here, this looks a lot more like what we've gotten before with the Hurricane bike model, which was a complete disaster. I'm sorry, eventually I'll review that, but I might just sell it. But point is, here we get something kind of in the same vein, but this obviously doesn't transform, so it's going to be a lot better. I kind of get a Gundam vibe from this one specifically, maybe the other one too, but this one kind of reminds me of the Leo Gundams. But we see the cannon on the top left shoulder, kind of like the Predator style. The gun he's holding is actually really badass. I like that he looks very armorized, and then the legs have that cocked back look, where kind of like a horse legs. I think that is usually something that looks really badass on these kinds of figures. It just makes them look less humanistic, and sometimes that can be a really cool thing. Now switching over to our next guy, here we have another mech. Now this one looks a little different, and I would say that this one's maybe my least favorite because of the way that the head, or at least what you would assume to be the visor, right, of the mech itself. But it still looks pretty cool overall. I like the gun that he has. That looks pretty badass. And then this one can obviously fly because he has those fat ass jetpacks in the background, so that's pretty cool. The design of this one, again, I think is my least favorite, but sometimes I say that, and Joytoy will come out with a color scheme that just completely changes the entire dynamic of the figure, and if that's the case, then of course this could be a must buy. Now, I hadn't noticed this the first time I saw this photo, but I finally figured it out. This is actually that first mech that I showed you with the twin scythes. As you can tell, they split at the middle and you can put them on its back. Man, I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty hardcore. This is really badass, and he comes with two guns that look a lot like the bolt pistols that we get from Warhammer. I don't believe this is any kind of Warhammer IP. And then on top of that, he has basically those blades that come out from the wrists that go behind the fists, right? So this is a really dope ass figure, man. Like, seeing it kind of in action, the colored background, and again, what I imagine is going to end up being just an incredible paint job. There's some really cool stuff. Again, I can't commit to the big mechs because they're just absolutely too large, but these smaller ones might be something I can commit to. Alright, now switching over to Hiya Toys, they are now coming out with some Judge Dredd stuff. Now, I'm not sure if they've had other releases before. If you guys know of any, please let me know down in the comments. But I am a fan of Judge Dredd. I read a recent graphic novel, and damn, is Judge Dredd absolutely dark. Not necessarily him, but the storyline itself is absolutely... It was a hard read, let me just say that. So I'm actually really happy to see that somebody is covering this, because there are some really badass things that they could pull, you know, badass designs that Hiya Toys could pull. Are they going to do it? I don't know, but it's still kind of nice to see that somebody is following an IP like this that I feel deserves more love than it's gotten in recent memory. So again, we are getting this Judge Dredd figure, and this might be a must buy for me. The second model that's going to be released is this Judge Death. Now, I have never seen, I don't know enough about Judge Dredd to know about all these extra characters, but as of right now, this is the second one that we are going to be getting, and he does look badass. Might be a pass for me, but maybe if I read more about this guy and know who he is, maybe I'd be more willing. Now, on top of this, we will be getting a Judge Mortis and also Judge Fear. So Judge Mortis and Judge Fear, and then on top of that, we will be getting a Lawmaker bike. All that has been confirmed following the release of these two. Again, I don't know enough about any of those other guys. I'm going to go ahead and try to do a little research so I can have those photos for you guys later. But the really cool thing for me is the Lawmaker bike. I think that if they do that correctly, and maybe they give us a few other judges that are just normal street judges that Judge Dredd might have allied himself with, I think that'll be definitely a must-buy overall for me. Now, switching over to some of that Acid Rain, and again, since we're talking here about bikes and futuristic soldiers, so here we have the strength of Vet. So these are actual in-person shots that we got, and as you can tell, man, this looks badass. It's always one thing to see a nice covered up photo, or not covered up, but you get what I mean, like edited and all that stuff to make it look promotional and all this stuff, but this was literally something that somebody sat on a table, put his camera nice and close to it, and just snapped a photo. And just look how badass this thing looks. The amount of detail, the fact that like his helmet is encased, not encased, but just the headrest on the actual bike itself. Like, there's a lot going on here that I had not realized, and I cannot wait to get this bad boy in person because Lord knows I need a bigger Omanga army. And then here we have Vet himself just in hand, and as you can tell, and this is going to be something that we're going to notice on the Omanga stuff, and I guess it's going to be something that continues happening, but if you pay attention, you'll notice that Vet himself is a skinny. I wouldn't necessarily say that he himself is skinnier than any of the other figures, but when they don't have any of that extra armor layered on top, they seem to look skinny. Considering that he's wearing kind of like a suit of armor altogether, he's a slim figure, and that goes in tune with everything that we've gotten from Omanga thus far. None of them are thicker figures, even though they're wearing armor. Here we have a little bit more of a clear shot, without the thumb in the way, so you can see the rest of the body. And again, this looks very clean. The aesthetic looks awesome. I think that this is definitely going to be a big seller for Acid Rain. And then here we have a photo of the Juggies himself, or is it the Guggies? I don't really know how exactly to pronounce it, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. So here we have him in person, and man, I'm not going to lie, this is surprisingly impressive. I don't think we've gotten any animals before. This is really the first animal that we're getting, and this looks like something right out of Star Wars. But what's even more impressive is that the figure itself looks surprisingly realistic. If you had showed me this and been like, hey, what animal is this? I might have been like, damn, I don't know, bro. I've never seen that before. But yeah, overall, the aesthetic looks really nice. And remember, this is just a photo, again, that somebody took with this figure literally right in front of them physically. This is what it would look like in hand. That's impressive. Now here we see basically the bulk of what it's going to come with. This is basically all the packaging, or should I say all the packs and backpacks and stuff that are basically on the back of it. And it looks really good. Again, this looks surprisingly realistic. I will give it up to Acid Rain in saying that this is going to be one of their more realistic looking sets and figures that we'll probably be getting out of them. So again, this is something that I can definitely appreciate. We also got blessed with an action pose right here, and I gotta admit, this looks really badass, and it's absolutely enormous. I mean, I imagine that person's hand is about as big as mine, so this thing's got to be standing somewhere at like a whole foot tall. So again, it's really nice that you can do little things like that. I don't know anything about the lore of these guys, but damn, I have to admit, this is a really cool, realistic rendition of what this thing would look like in real life. So I can't tell, but this is either Narin or Mishaku, one of the two guys from the Republic Yamamoto stuff that we're going to be getting. And this is what he looks like in hand. And of course, this is probably going to be one of my favorite figures of the year. I'm not lying here. I love the whole samurai motif, the whole Japanese thing. And this guy just looks just incredible. These guys are part of an organization called, I believe, the Owls or something like that. And basically, they are like a secret police. So I would not be surprised if we end up getting more specifically of these guys, not the same characters, but actual named Oni looking characters, and I am absolutely here for it. It would be a juggernaut in terms of money making for Acid Rain. So Acid Rain, if you're watching this, make more figures like this. Now switching over here, we have Eliza from Annex 2179. So I've yet to buy anything from this specific Toy Alliance line of toys. But I have to admit, this is probably the one that if I end up pulling the trigger that'll get me into the line, it'll probably be this one. This looks really nice overall. The color palette, the weapon, the helmet. I'm going to tell you right now, this is probably going to be their nicest head sculpt that we've gotten, and probably their nicest helmet as well. There is a lot of detail here. A lot of the right pieces were put together to make something that looks really cool. And from my understanding, she's like an undead. She's basically a vampire is what she is. They just didn't call her a vampire, but that's basically what she is. And she comes with the Nerino Sentinel gun, and then she comes with two basically revolvers that I don't think we've ever seen before. But again, just seeing her in hand, it's obvious that this is going to be probably their best figure from this line. And then of course here we have her just in hand, a nice clear shot of her. I think again, it's a really nice aesthetic all the way through the bottom. I love these colors. I really kind of hope we end up seeing, I don't know, potentially either other soldiers that are supposed to go with them or just regular infantry. I understand that the Annex thing is supposed to be basically unique characters all throughout, but we have seen one or two here that have been regular infantry troopers. So I hope we get them in this style of color, like a little vampire army. That would be badass. Now here we have a boys unit, or I guess a boys infantry trooper. I don't know what you would call this specifically, but this right here is what I was referring to. I believe this is the only infantry unit we've gotten before. I don't like the color at all. I'm just going to tell you that off the rip. And seeing it even in person right here, still don't like the color. I think that maybe they should have chose something different. But I will admit that I do kind of like the aesthetic, and the more I see it even in person, the more it kind of grows on me. So there's still a possibility that if I get into this line, I might pick up a couple of these. But I think this just highlights how good Eliza looks. Also, I don't know if you can see in the background, but we see what is a Nerino Sentinel, but with the gold head. I'm not exactly sure if we've seen this one yet, but it is cool to see that something like that is on the way coming down the pipeline. Now here we have Nazir and Golgo. Now here's the crazy thing. I'm not a fan of the Soil Ghost stuff. I wasn't planning on buying it. I most likely will not buy it. However, after seeing these photos and just kind of seeing them just for the regular figures that they are, and not again the promotional photos that we see, sometimes that can be enough to actually sway you into buying these. And I gotta admit, seeing them just normally, just as figures, the aesthetic is actually super badass. I hate to say it, but as much as I would like to pass on these photos are kind of what are making me want to buy them. They look really cool overall altogether with the aesthetic that they have, with the stance that they have. This is definitely something different and it's very uniquely Acid Rain. Here we also see Doeg, and again, just a really cool aesthetic overall. Very unique pieces all throughout. This is definitely something that you haven't gotten before, and some of the asymmetry of these guys is really cool. Again, it was something that I think bothered me before, but the more I see these guys outside and just as figures, the more just badass these look to me. And then here we have Chief Corrin on top of one of the Gujis, and of course he looks, this isn't his most dynamic pose, so this isn't something that necessarily gets me, but it is something cool to note. Now here we have the Abaddon Geis, and I'm going to tell you right now, they were flexing on some people with this figure right here. Look how absolutely far that shoulder goes. He can literally choke himself out with his arm. That's really good articulation. I think the only figures that I've seen that can comfortably do that is Kelsey and anybody that's on the Kelsey Buck, which is really nice. But damn, do I love the fact that this one right here has really nice articulation overall. Alright, and then to top it all off, we have the Nerino Machine Gunner, and I'm going to tell you right now, this is just an incredibly cool looking figure. I have one on pre-order right now, and when I'm done with this video, I'm going to put the second one down because I want to make sure I can cop at least 2, maybe more. But so far, I think this is going to be an incredible set. All the Narinu stuff is just probably going to be, at least for now, my favorite figures altogether from Acid Rain. I love everything that I have, and of course, getting some new stuff is always easy to feel enamored by it, but I really think the Narinu stuff is going to end up being, just basically all the Republic of Yamamoto stuff is going to end up being some of the best stuff out of Acid Rain, aside from maybe those guys as well. But I think this is really where the money's at, and I do appreciate how good this looks in the photos, in person, just all around an awesome figure. And this is just going to be something that I gotta cop. All right, so let me know what you guys thought was your favorite piece that we went over today. All right, I'll see you guys on the next one.